Everyone made expressions of belated realization. They understood that they hadn't thought of the fundamental problem. At this moment, Lee Jai-hai opened her mouth again. That. Lee Jai-hai raised her hand. I felt somewhat uneasy. By the way. Yes, Jai-hai? Do you know something? No, you don't think it is me. What bullshit was this girl saying? Lee Jai-hai's comment seemed to relax the party members. Jung Hee-won asked, what? Did Dr. SSI do something? That man, towards a minor. No, that's not it. Then? I just thought about it using common sense. I am a high school girl. Then he should like me. The party members ignored Lee Jai-hai and continued the discussion. It was Jung Hee-won who gave her opinion first. My guess is that Dr. SSI's most loved person is Usanga SSI. Huh? Usanga was startled. She was so surprised that I was hurt. Why me? It should be like this. In fact, Usanga SSI's beauty, well, I don't need to mention it. The members nodded and Usanga's face turned red. Jung Hee-won kept speaking. You are running around everywhere to save Dr. SSI. I honestly think it would be strange if Dr. SSI doesn't like Usanga SSI. Certainly, there was no one who wouldn't like Usanga. She was pretty, kind, had a good personality. There was no denying it. Huh? I'm just a work colleague and received help from Dr. SSI. Usanga acted like it was a difficult situation before she suddenly hit back at Jung Hee-won. I actually thought it was Hee-won SSI. Yes? Me? Yes, I think that Dr. SSI likes Hee-won SSI. Jung Hee-won was surprised by the unexpected counterattack and her eyes widened. Lee Hyun-sung also jumped with shock. It was an interesting hypothesis for me as well. This. Dr. SSI is really kind to Hee-won SSI. He gave you equipment and Hee-won SSI seemed to smile very well when talking to Dr. SSI. Certainly, there seemed to be such a thing. It was very easy for me to converse with Jung Hee-won. It was in the sense that she was a character I found and raised. The confused Jung Hee-won shook her hands with a flushed face. Huh? No, wait a minute. That. The party members started to gossip again. It didn't feel good. Lee Jai-hai stood alone and muttered, Kim Dokja is trash. No, I didn't do anything wrong. This time, it was Lee Gil-young who interrupted. I don't think love necessarily means love between a man and woman. Maybe, then what do you think, Gil-young? Dokja Hyung likes me. Why do you say that? That. Lee Gil-young agonized over the question before giant tears started to spill from his eyes. It seemed that no matter how much he thought about it, he couldn't find a reason why I would love him. This time, it was Lee Hyun-sung who spoke, ahem. Perhaps it's the love between comrades in arms. People simultaneously stared at Yoo Jung-hyuk. Yoo Jung-hyuk, who was standing with his arms crossed, frowned. What are you looking at? Lee Jai-hai and Jung Hee-won were whispering to each other. Perhaps. Right? Isn't this right? The constellation demon-like judge of fire is nodding violently. At this time, the quietly listening Shin Yu-sung raised her hand. Excuse me. The party members tacitly realized something. Among them, the one who might know my mind best was my incarnation Shin Yu-sung. Why yes. Yu-sung. Speak. Do you know anything? Shin Yu-sung slowly shook her head. The expressions of the party members were disappointed. However, Shin Yu-sung's words weren't over yet. Why don't you just ask a Jussi? What? Dr. SSI? How? I suddenly felt cold. Shin Yu-sung was looking exactly where I was watching them. As always, my ominous feeling was correct. My lovely incarnation smiled and pointed at me. Ajusi is listening to our conversation after all. Damn. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is wrong. Again. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name is wrong. One more time. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name says he was really wrong. After repeatedly apologizing, the party members, especially Young Hee-won and Usanga, barely forgave me. Young Hee-won said, then, who is the person Dr. SSI loves most? I was about to answer when Lee Hyun-sung spoke up. Come to think of it, it might be no one here. Ah, that reminds me, Dr. SSI left with that woman. The name. Han Soo-young? Young Hee-won also added. Usanga's expression hardened at Han Soo-young's words. Are you with that woman right now? Usanga's expression was greatly disappointed because she didn't like Han Soo-young. I needed to speak before things got worse. I took a deep breath and sent an indirect message. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name says he doesn't love anyone. An unknown atmosphere covered the party members. Some were disappointed while some were excited. No, why were they so interested in the love life of others? Young Hee-won said, you have to say it precisely. There is no one right now. According to fate, Dr. SSI will surely love someone. Well, she wasn't wrong. Young Hee-won continued speaking. Then I will change the question. What type of style does Dr. SSI like? Is it close to one of us? No, why should I tell them? I know you are wondering why you should answer, but it is important to us. If Dr. SSI likes one of us, we might be able to stop that fate. It was slightly convincing. Fate was very powerful, but as I said, it wasn't inevitable. If I knew who I loved, I might be able to go against fate. I felt sorry that the party members were so worried about my death. However, the constellation who doesn't yet have a name isn't sure. In the end, Young Hee-won was irritated. Oh, why are you so frustrating? Ajusi, it's fine to tell us. Is it the time to be polite? The constellation who doesn't yet have a name says there is no such thing. Damn, I had to use a lot of coins to send the indirect messages. The constellation who doesn't yet have a name doesn't know his heart. Dr. SSI really. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband is interested in the new story. The constellation Secretive Plotter wonders about your choice. The constellation Abyssal Black Flame Dragon is glancing this way. Many constellations are choking on sweet potatoes are your frustrating answer. Even the constellations were listening to our conversation. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire is telling you not to deceive yourself on your heart. Some constellations declare there is no one apart from the incarnation, Usanga. Some constellations support the incarnation, Shin Yusung. Some constellations who love true friends support the incarnation, Lee Hyun-sung. This was an utter mess. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire has a good idea. The next moment, an item popped out of thin air. Item information. Name, Affection Reader. Rating, SS. Description, an item that lets you know what the other person thinks about you. After pressing the button and thinking about the name and appearance of the other person, the affection number will automatically appear in the air. I became distracted the moment I saw this item. The affection reader was a luxurious item that could only be purchased by platinum members of the Dakibi bag. No, using 100,000 coins for this unhealthy entertainment? Was she crazy? As expected from an archangel. This is big. Young Hee-won shouted. The constellation Demon-like Judge of Fire says to try and use it. Then who will go first? It is Hee-won Uni's sponsor, so let her try first. Shall I? Young Hee-won became slightly nervous once it was time to use it. I was also tense. Why was I so nervous when I was finally getting to know my heart? It felt like I was naked. I felt really strange as I saw everyone focus on the affection reader. After a while, there was a beeping sound and the message slowly appeared. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation, Jung Hee-won, is 54 points. The nervous Jung Hee-won was disappointed when she saw the score. 54 points. Is that high? I want to try next. Lee Jae-hai took away the reader and cried out playfully as she pressed the button. Let me know Kim Dokja's heart. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation, Lee Jae-hai, is 6 points. Lee Jae-hai was in a daze as the other members used the reader. Then it was Lee Gil-young, Lee Hyun-sung and Shin Yu-sung. Their scores were 49 points, 50 points and 56 points respectively. In the corner, Lee Jae-hai was muttering, Kim Dokja is trash. On the other hand, Shin Yu-sung was excited. Finally, only Yu Sang-ga and Yu Jung-hyuk were left. Jae Jung-hyuk SSI first. I have no intention of joking around. Yu Jung-hyuk went to search the monster corpses in the distance and all eyes naturally turned to Yu Sang-ga. Yu Sang-ga took the reader. Then just before she used it, the constellation, Queen of the Darkest Spring presents a special item to incarnation, Yu Sang-ga. Clothes fell out of the air and the clothing of Yu Sang-ga changed. It was into a black Chinese dress with a black garter belt. Yu Sang-ga stuttered at the sudden change. This is. I felt desperate at the sight of Yu Sang-ga and inwardly cursed. That damn granny of Olympus. Jung Hee-won, who didn't know anything, nodded. Ah, it is a constellation event? Sang-ga Nuna, come forward. Yu Sang-ga pressed the button. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation, Yu Sang-ga, is 481 points. 481 points. Isn't that crazy? Doesn't this confirm it? Dr. SSI's favorite person is really. Yu Sang-ga was stuttering with a red face when Lee Jae-hai felt something strange and opened her mouth. No wait. Sang-ga Uni. Can you lend me those clothes? Yes. Lee Jae-hai entered a nearby building to change clothes before pressing the button of the reader. The affection score of the constellation, Kim Dokja, towards the incarnation, Lee Jae-hai, is 481 points. Everyone was speechless. I couldn't say anything through my shame. Lee Jae-hai shouted ridicule towards the air, Jung Hee-won grabbed her belly and shook as she laughed and Yu Sang-ga muttered with blank eyes. It isn't a person he loves most. Lee Gil-young and Lee Hyun-sung were shaking their heads. Shit, this was why I didn't want to do this. Shin Yu-sung was shivering as she watched me. I wanted to apologize when I saw my incarnation's reaction, but Shin Yu-sung shouted first. Ajusi. Yes, sorry Yu-sung. Ajusi. What's wrong? Ajusi. The pale Shin Yu-sung stretched out a hand towards the air. There was something strange. Shin Yu-sung's voice became distant and my vision swirled as I became dizzy. Wait. This was perhaps. The next moment, my consciousness was cut off along with the message. You have died.